All right. So I'm from Helena. I grew up in Minnesota, so you might hear my accent come out on occasion as we go through some of the stuff. But don't worry, my mom was born in Butte, so we're good, right?
Yes.
And my husband always says, please don't tell people you're a Flatlander. We don't appreciate it out here that much. So, but anyways, yeah, so today I really expect people to interrupt me, ask questions. Specifically, Jessica's going to interrupt, your favorite HR team member over there. And it might feel kind of difficult to be interactive when we're talking about harassment, but we can have some fun with it too. And I'm happy to see law enforcement and firefighters here, so you guys can help me with the workplace violence, safety kind of stuff. All right, so first, there's our itinerary: discrimination, harassment. Sexual harassment is only one form of harassment, and workplace violence. And Jessica, when did you say we're going to get out of here? 1 hour?
Probably. Ish.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to keep looking at my phone to keep on time, not to text message while I'm doing a training. All right, so why do you guys think we're talking about this today? Remember this guy? This is giving me really great material for these trainings, okay? And then a couple other favorite actors. Anyone used to watch House of Cards? And then the show is taken off the air. And then your very favorite news anchor. My sister-in-law was devastated by this. Anyone else shocked when Matt Lauer got in really big trouble? And then the Winter Olympics, being from Minnesota, I grew up ice fishing and playing hockey. And so the Winter Olympics are a big deal to me. And you try to watch Shaun White. He won a gold medal, right? And then in his gold medal interview, they asked him about his sexual harassment claim. So you couldn't even watch the Olympics. And then our favorite taxi service, Uber, they had 215 human resource claims. They had too much fun at company parties. And then also we have the Me Too movement going on. So as you can see, I have a lot of really good material that we can use as examples as we go on. So just to start for fun, who can name the protected classes? Other than Jessica, she's not allowed. Protected classes are who we can't discriminate on or harass. Everybody. Gender, race. What? Religion. Age, color, sexual orientation. Butte specifically protects that, the city of Butte. You guys are doing good. Any others? Disabilities, that's a huge one. That's the #1 Human Rights Bureau claim in the state of Montana. Pregnancy. That's correct. So, age is special in Montana. Does anyone know why? Other than Jessica? What? Retirement, that's one. So, federal laws protect 40 and over. And in Montana, specifically, we protect all ages. So that means, so I also am involved with a staffing company in Helena, and so we'll get clients that say, oh, I don't want a young person. Send me an employee, not a young person, not a millennial, right? But technically in Montana, we can't even discriminate against young people. But my spin on that is, right, that sounds kind of ridiculous, but my spin on it is who here might have a family member or friend that is, not a millennial or older and behaves like a 2-year-old on occasion. Right? So I like to say that age has nothing to do with maturity, emotional levels. Maybe not completely nothing, but sometimes, sadly, we all get disappointed. All right, there's one other thing that's special in Montana. Has anyone heard that marital status is a protected class? So marital status. So that means it's difficult. So my husband works on at Boeing. I'm going to use him, pick on him during this training a lot. So I don't really want to work with my husband, but if Boeing specifically chose not to hire me because we were married, that would be marital status discrimination. There are ways to, like my husband probably wouldn't want to manage me, or I don't want to manage him, or no, he doesn't want me to manage him, right? Supervise him. I already tried to do that at home. But there's ways around that where you can, because that might be a conflict of interest for the company or organization. So maybe then Jessica supervises me instead of my husband. All right, so here is the complete list of protected classes from the Human Rights Bureau in Montana. So we have age, again, this works all ages, marital status, physical or mental disability, race, national origin. Does anyone know what national origin might be? Where you come from, a different country. Yep, so what I like to say is we only care if people can legally work here. We don't care where they're from. So, another example, I'm from northern Minnesota, so I can't choose to not hire a Canadian because we lost, Minnesota Wild lost to the Montreal Canadiens. So I can't discriminate against their national origin if they can legally work here. All right, color. So how do you guys think color is different than race? And there's no wrong answers, so don't be afraid. Color and race, how would we differentiate? Can't pick on albinos? Yeah, it's specifically skin color, so that is correct. So color is only skin color. Okay, and race would be, I did Ancestry.com and found out that I am 40% Norwegian, so that would maybe be if you're discriminating against me because I'm Norwegian. All right, okay, religion, creed. How do you think religion is different than creed? One's organized, that's good. Has anyone ever heard the definition of creed before? It's not a band. It's not a bad band. It's not a good band. So it's my least favorite protected class because it's just defined as a strongly held belief. And to my knowledge, there's not a lot of case law on it, but that is what it is. I don't know if Jessica knows anything about it, but creed is one.
Word.
It's what?
It's just a word.
Just a word. Religion. The example I've used before for religion, what it can be, you have to be careful about it. So there is a case, it's the body modification, it's the Church of Body Modification. It's a real thing. I actually did this training and someone after it was in the state came up and told me that he belonged to it. So there was a case, the Church of Body Modification Church, and an employee of Costco belonged to it. And so they tried to claim that they wanted to wear a piercing at work, and Costco gave them a Band-Aid to cover it. And the courts ruled that Costco had an okay reason to make them cover. Costco actually won, but the church was body modification. And you can look it up online. It's a real thing. Sex. So sex is including pregnancy, maternity, sexual harassment, and sexual orientation. Familial status, so that's only in housing. Does anyone work in housing here? So we can't pick on you today. Okay. Political ideas, so that applies to you guys. So myself in the private sector, I can choose to not hire someone because of their political beliefs. Probably not a good idea. Unemployment's kind of low. It might not be job related, but specifically in the public sector, it's political ideas are protected. And then retaliation. Retaliation is when it's directly related to a protected class. And an example of retaliation is we don't want to ask people if they've ever done a work comp claim in an interview, because if we chose not to hire them for exercising a protected right, that would be retaliation. Okay, so anyone know what EEO stands for? Equal Employment Opportunity. Good job. Jessica, good job. They know. So EEOC and the human rights, they are in charge of us and all these things we're talking about today. So employers are prohibited from discriminating against the protected classes. So discrimination sometimes might be inappropriate, but may not be unlawful. But generally, you want to be safe. You're generally safe by enforcing legitimate job-related requirements. So an example of discrimination against other groups. So if Disneyland is going to hire a princess, is someone as a princess applying for the job with a tattoo all over her face? Would that be discriminating if we chose not to hire because she has tattoos? Probably not. It's always probably or maybe in HR, but so that would be maybe, what? Nothing. So Disneyland, Disneyland can choose how they want people to look, and most employers can. So they can dictate dress code for the most part, tattoos being covered, piercings being taken out, etc. All right, so the three different types of discrimination. We have different treatment. So different treatment, treating individuals differently on account of a protected class. So that would be that Butte Silver Bowl only gives men health care and not women, right? That would be discriminating on sex. Adverse impact. Has anyone heard of that before? It's a little less heard of in Montana. It's a fun one. So adverse impact, practices that disproportionately disqualify individuals of protected groups even though neutrally applied. So the example, there was a court case, I believe it was I can't remember the exact names, but it was in the South, and an employer, it was like a manufacturing company, and they required that the minimum requirements, they had to have a high school diploma. And they were charged with discrimination against minorities, because minorities are less likely to have a high school diploma. And then the company could not argue that the high school diploma was directly related to being successful on the job. So it had adverse impact. So in Montana, very much less common. Retaliation, that's the biggest one. I mean, think about if someone filed a human rights claim against you or accused you of harassment, discrimination, pretty natural to be kind of upset about that, not really want to be best friends with that person anymore. But any adverse action we take against that person can be retaliation. So it's really common and hard. All right, so Montana, more about why we're special. Law enforcement, I believe, has to deal with this a lot. So there's individual dignity and there's privacy in the Constitution. So on the HR world, privacy in the Constitution has a lot to do with our drug testing laws, so we can't just drug test whoever we want in Montana because all of your rights are protected through the privacy in the Constitution. And I believe, and law enforcement tell me if I'm wrong, does that affect like search and seizure for you guys, different than other states? Maybe not? A little bit? Little head nod? Or are you just trying to make me feel better?
I'm making you feel better.
Okay, little head nod. Thank you. Okay, so we are special with privacy. All right, so you guys were great. You brought up disability as a protected class, and what dictates that besides Montana Human Rights is the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we cannot discriminate based on physical or mental handicap. And then we as employers have to provide reasonable accommodation. So first of all, who here supervises anyone? Are there any supervisors in the room? Awesome, congrats and condolences. Your actions are held to a higher standard, so all of this creates more liability for you, because you maybe do more hiring, firing, etc. So, disabled, can anyone tell me in their own words what they think disabled may mean?
Inability to do a job without reasonable accommodation.
Yes, inability to do a job with reasonable accommodations. So, the disabilities we all usually think of are like being in a wheelchair, but a lot mental disabilities are things we're unaware of or we don't see, so those can come up a lot as well. But the big thing with disability, it's with or without reasonable accommodation, and unless So can someone that's in a wheelchair dig ditches? Probably not, right? Maybe they could do backup. Yeah, exactly. That'd be good. That might be accommodation. But also, it might mean they're not qualified to perform the job. So unless the reasonable demands of the job require the distinction to be made is in the law. So it doesn't mean like firefighters have to hire people in wheelchairs. So that might be a safety issue. Maybe not. So it's just public safety usually trumps anything. But disability is just to be very careful anytime it comes up. So if you have an employee that's calling in sick and they reveal to you they have PTSD or anxiety or something, make sure you bother and make it Jessica's problem because they may have just asked for an accommodation. Even though they didn't say I need an accommodation, but there could be liability. So just make it HR department's problem. We'll go through that a couple times throughout this. You can make any of this their problem. Right, Jess?
Yep.
Any of it. All right, so if we ever get charged with discrimination, our defense is called the business necessity defense. And that would be that example of that company was unable to prove that a high school diploma made someone successful in the job or not. They failed at the business necessity defense. So say I discriminated and I didn't hire a ditch digger that was a quadriplegic. I better be able to have a decent job description to show that they needed to physically be able to dig a ditch and lift so much weight. And then BFOQ, bona fide occupational requirement defense. So it's related to different treatments, so similar to the ditch digging. Race is never a BFOQ for obvious reasons. Customer preference are not a defense to an act of discrimination. So some people say, well, I prefer to deal with a man, or customer maybe. I'd rather have a man or a woman. Generally that's a no-no, so make it Jessica's problem. All right, so suggested do's and don'ts. Try to make everything job related. Remember the role of the supervisor. That's the whole congrats and condolences to those of you that supervise employees. Don't invade privacy. So privacy, do you think your work computer is private? No. Is your purse private? Yeah. So that's kind of what we use as an example. So don't go digging around in people's purses, looking for drugs, or even if you have a legitimate concern, make it Jessica's problem. And she maybe loops in law enforcement, who knows. Equal treatment, so anytime there's discipline, making sure, to loop in your HR departments and everything to make sure it's similarly treated so we don't get in trouble. Avoid suspect inquiries. So when you're doing job interviews, so my uncle owns a big construction company in Montana, and he's a family man, and he tells you he's a family man, and I love him, but he likes to ask about family in the interview, almost make me have a heart attack and keel over, just because I'm an HR nerd, but he may have good intentions, but it doesn't matter. He may get information that could be used against him, like he might get genetic information. Oh, so-and-so is my mom, and he knows that person has cancer, so he thinks that employee might be gone a lot. Maybe he doesn't think they're the right fit for the job anymore. See how easily it can spin out of control. So just try to make things job related. Train and retrain managers, that's why you guys get to go to this fun training today. And make sure, if you didn't sign in on your way in, make sure you sign in on your way out so that you don't have to hang out with me again for an hour. Or watch it on the GoPro later. Keep personnel actions and investigations confidential, because that's where protecting privacy. Make that, again, Jessica's problem. But the biggest one, call HR before acting, not afterwards. And if you screw up and you act, still call them. They'll help you. But first, try to call before. All right. We kind of went over this, so I'm going to breeze through it. This is, the one touch I'll do is the existence or nature of the severity of the disability. What are you guys, does anyone know what their current policy is? So if road crew's hiring and someone lets you know they had a back surgery, what do you do? Get concerned or? Call HR. Good job. Yes, call HR. But it's pretty easy to think, oh, like when did that happen? Or it's just easy to have those conversations. But yeah, call HR. And I'm sure your job descriptions are good and you can always deal with it. But if in doubt, I wouldn't say anything further unless you have a protocol. Do you have anything to add, Jess, on that?
No, just that typically our employees will let us know if they need to be gone for a surgery or something like that. And then before they can return, they need to make sure that they provide documentation saying that, yes, they can perform their duties still. Just depending on the situation, you know. But yeah, so.
That's a good point too. So if you're annoyed that HR is making you give paperwork to return to work, it's also to protect you besides the company, besides Beauty Silver Bow. All right, and we don't ask about employees or applicants' exercise of protected rights such as work comp, they filed a sexual harassment claim, etc., or who they voted for, that kind of stuff. All right, so to the fun part that you guys really want to interact with me on. So, can you give me any examples of what you think might be harassment?
Inappropriate jokes.
Inappropriate jokes, that might be. Those never happen at work, right? Anything else?
Giving a specific person a task that you don't give everyone, as far as like, picking on them to do that.
So the example is giving a specific person a task that you don't give other people. That